All right, we're rolling. Hi, everybody. It's Jannah with another episode of Random Yet Riveting Ramblings. And for this episode, we're talking all about the question, why?
Good stuff.
And I chose this question because I think that it's the most important question. But there were a lot of different things that came up when I was thinking about this question. And we're going to take each one of those points in turn. So I'm going to ask the first point and then we're going to talk about it. But first I need to allow this lady here to tell you who she is and then we'll get started.
Hi everyone, I'm Jessica Canty. I am your life and career strategist. I have a passion for helping people go from unfulfilled jobs to their dream careers, and I love talking about how to present yourself professionally. So when this beautiful lady next to me said, let's talk about inappropriate questions and how to answer them, I was like, okay, let's do this, because it definitely affects your career trajectory, affects whether or not you're going to get promotion and raises. You can't just say whatever you want to say at work and think that that everything's going to be okay. There are some outcomes to it. So I can't wait to just have a random, what is it?
Yet riveting.
Riveting. It's
Rambling.
riveting.
Yes. Okay, it's going to be riveting, darling. Okay, so usually I've been trying to keep the conversation, because I do ramble. I've been trying to keep it to about 25 minutes or so. So I'm going to try to keep to that. And I'm going to jump into, which one should we start with? The when or when not to ask why?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's get into the first thing that I thought about when wondering about the question why. And I said, when is it appropriate to ask why? And when is it not appropriate to ask why? For me, it's hard for me to discern. I think that it's always appropriate to know why, but then there are instances when it's not appropriate to ask why. So did you have thoughts you want to jump in first on when is it appropriate to ask why or when it's not?
Well, one, I wanted, the first time we had this conversation, she kind of gave a scenario, so I kind of wanted you to give that scenario so I can give you a little feedback on. So something like, so they understand what we mean by when it's appropriate to ask.
Okay,
why,
so for me, all right. So I think that why is the most important question, because whenever somebody is asking me questions, if they're inquiring about me or if they want some information from me, I have to assess why they're asking in order for me to give that information. Mm-hmm. Because information to me is really sacred. I am private. So whenever I'm asking why, I think that it's important because I want to know what's your reason for asking, what's your reason for acting this way, or what made you do this sometimes, or so I think that it's something that I often want to know, but people respond to me differently based on like me asking them why. Like some people take offense to being asked why, depending on the situation. I've had someone stop talking to me because I asked why. And I think that it's necessary to assess why, but especially before you about to walk into certain situations. Like if somebody want to have, like, what really made me think was when someone wants to have a conversation with you and they say, well, let's talk. Can I talk to you about something, or can I talk to you? And I'm thinking, well, why? What about? What you want to talk to me about? And it's not like I feel like I have the right to ask that without someone getting offended. Like, why are you upset? That I want to know why. And that's what sparked it. And that's what I know, that it has to be times when it's appropriate to ask why, and it has to be times when it's not appropriate to ask why. But I don't always know when it's socially appropriate. That's why I wanted to lean on Jessica, because I don't know. I can't always tell, and it'll come out wrong. But you were saying that there are definitely times when no, you should not be asking somebody why are you doing this? What made you do that?
Yeah, we kind of talked about this, and I think it's because why is very confronting. And it really stops people. Why is confronting, and then it brings something about, it brings a pause. You know, it's asking, like, what is the motivation? What is the purpose behind something? And not everybody's prepared to answer that question, or people have manipulative reasons why they're asking you. Like that question, like I've walked into conversations before and it's like, I should have asked, why did you want to talk to me? Or what was the purpose of us meeting? And it just was really, it was a disastrous for me. But I think the more important question is to try to find the purpose behind it, or what's the ultimate goal. So let's just say, if it's a friend and they say, hey, we need to talk, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. Well, when do you want to chat? And like, how much time should I dedicate? And what do you want me to think about before we go into this conversation? I'm really asking you why. Mm-hmm. You know, like, because how much time you want to talk about it lets me know, okay, no, girl, I want to see your opinion on a pair of shoes. That's, that's what, as opposed to saying why, because it can be very confronting. And I even share this further. When I train social workers, I always say the better question is what? Like, what leads you to ask this question? Or what's the ultimate goal of us conversing about this? Or what do you want me to think about before we talk? That's really helpful when you're on the job. But even if it's, siblings or colleagues, and they say, would you mind giving me some time to chat? Always put some space in between it, though. I would too, because people have to respect your boundaries. That's another way of saying you will tell me why as well. Yeah. So if somebody says, I need to chat with you, sure. I've got a few things on my schedule. Well, if you let me know what you want to talk about, I can make sure I put aside the time to dedicate that. I want to give you my full energy. So what are some things you want me to consider before we go into this conversation? Because some whys, again, I think people think it's it's checking them, or it's
why you want to know?
Because you asked me a valid question. It's very like I said, it's a valid question to ask why.
I love what you just said. This is why I wanted to have this conversation with you when you said, well, what do you want me to think about before we have this conversation? Because that's good professionally and personally, because I think that when somebody, especially in the example of I need to talk to you about something, that is a setup for, if you don't respond the right way, it can shut down whatever they wanted to talk to you about. Your reaction will determine if they want to talk to you. But I think that when they ask in that situation and they don't tell you, why would you want me to be blindsided? I don't want to not know what I'm walking into. Why can't I know the topic? Because I should have the right to choose whether or not I want to engage in this conversation, especially if it's a sensitive topic, or maybe I don't have enough time to dedicate right then, or maybe I'm not in a place to have that conversation. But I won't know that until I assess why you want to talk to me. And I think that it's a matter of maintaining some type of power too for me. I want to know why, so I can choose, do I want to be a part of this conversation? But for professionally, I have had someone who had a different position than me and asked me for a meeting, they wanted to talk, and guessing about it is anxiety provoking. Who wants to wonder what are they? Am I in trouble? That's the first thing you think about. Oh man, what did I do wrong?
Can you come in my office for a second?
Or if they want to know, you asking why. Some people get insulted because they feel like knowing why is only for certain people up here. You don't need to know why because you're right here. That's why some people respond to kids the wrong way when they ask why, because they think you shouldn't be asking me why, or you don't need to know why. Just sit right here and let me do what I want to do. Let me say what I want to say.
But it's so interesting you said your response can dictate whether or not they want to converse with you about whatever it is they wanted to address with you. Really, that's not how do I say this in the best way? It's not my job to be concerned about your motivation or whether or not my reaction makes you want to talk to me about it.
Right.
Because if it's important, you should want to share with me. And a lot of times people build up an anxiety around sharing the subject with you. So when you say why, then it's it's sort of passing the ball back. Well, why do you want to talk to me about it? And they can get anxiety. And they're already, especially if it's a confronting conversation, they're already on edge. And that's really not your responsibility. But what is your responsibility is to nurture the relationship in such a way that you're asking about, okay, I'm curious about it. And I'm so for boundaries. The older I get, the more I realize boundaries are so very important. So if the person cannot share with you what it is you want to discuss, I would just politely say, until we can kind of get on the same page as to what we're going to be discussing, let's go ahead and table that conversation. Because I want to make sure that we both can bring something that's going to make sure we both walk away from that conversation better, enlightened, more whole, whatever the conversation may be, depending upon unless it's your boss. If it's your boss,
you can't be like, let's table that. I don't want to talk about that today.
If it's your boss, I still want to come to, because it shows your level of professionalism. Just say, I want to make sure I'm prepared. It's the best use of your time. How much time should I allot? What priority should I put aside so that I can focus on because if they say, girls, come on, come in the office. We're talking about signing a birthday card. Okay, that's something different.
But that's good.
Right. I get it. But if I'm saying how much time I should set aside, they say it's going to be about 2 hours. This is going to be a serious conversation. Well, I want to make sure I bring all the tools, all the information you need for me to present to you or answer any questions you may have. So can you give me, some guidelines around what you want to discuss so that I can be prepared and it's a good use of your time.
Okay. All right. So I think that we talked about when it's appropriate, when and how to word it. I think wording matters. And okay. Well, did you mention too, like because you train clients and things, and my background is in counseling psychology. They do tell you to stay away from why because people feel judged when you ask, and they oftentimes don't know why, and it's a big question. So if you're asking somebody instead, like you said, say what or what made you or how or just take why out. But in my personal life, I remember it was hard for me to understand why we could not ask a client why. That was like a difficult thing. But now I understand it because I actually had a client think that I didn't like her because of the way that I asked her about her reasoning behind the things that she did.
Wow.
And so I know that it does make a difference how you word it. But okay, let's shift gears and talk about in situations when like when you're ready to know why. Like you mentioned this, like when I said how for me I always want to know why, and you said, well, are you ready to know why? So sometimes it may not be appropriate for you to know why, and it may not be you may not be ready to know the answer to that question, and how sometimes other people who are asking me why may not really be ready for my reason. So I wanted to talk about maybe situations or what your thoughts are on are you ready to know why? Like, so, and then after we can talk about should I be explaining why? But
well, you know, because I guess you kind of flip the script a little bit because like if someone asks you why in that space, they may not be aware of how confronting why is. You want to be careful about the space you're talking about it in because that's when you say when is it appropriate or like are you ready to answer why, because your answer for the why might be very confronting, very personal. So I would say be careful about the space that you're in. When you, because that's going to indicate to you whether or not you're ready for the why. So if you ask the why in front of people, that person is not, beholden to your values of being discreet, of, being professional, of being just having truth intact. So they might just go ahead and say, whatever it is. So ask yourself if you're ready to receive why. Like, are you ready for others to see and hear that why?
Yes.
Like, or are you ready to be in front of others when you hear why. That why. So even if it's a why and there's nobody else around, but there's other people, like I'm thinking again, going into the boss's office and you ask why, are you ready to get yourself together and step out of the office after you've heard what the why is? Because sometimes like I won't ask why because I don't know if I want to hear the answer, because sometimes you could pick up on the answer to why by the way the person's behavior. So if they're kind of acting standoffish or just not wanting to chat with me, I'm like, you know what, maybe they're not in a space to talk to me. So if I ask why, I might find out they really don't, really don't like me, or I don't even know if it may not even be that extent. It might just be that they're having a bad day, and if I'm not ready to be there emotionally for them, again, so you just want to check yourself, like, are you ready for any possible outcome when you ask that why? Because not everybody is as introspective as you to think, well, maybe, you want to ask that differently or respond differently.
And I think about examples like in relationships and, excuse me, when, like for romantic relationships or just close, intimate relationships, that's a better word for it. But if, say, for example, if somebody, if a relationship ends, then yeah, you want to know why. But if that person is with somebody else, maybe you don't need to be sitting there thinking why is he with somebody, why they not with me, like it's not that's so that you don't need to know why or why. Like this song that I heard, the Monica song, she was silly young me, like she was wondering, her boyfriend was cheating on her and she kept asking herself over again why, like why was he doing this. So I think it's not good to know why it's not always necessary to know why somebody else is acting in the way that they act. It's necessary to know why you're reacting this way or why you care. Like,
why is it important?
Yeah, why is it important to you?
Turn mirror into why is it important?
Right.
And the what is that is what would you do with that information anyway?
That is something that you need to assess too.
Yeah,
like
what are you
for
do with
sure.
That information?
Because some people just think like, and I know for me, like because I said why I thought was why was such an important question, I would just need to know, and I would look, and then once I knew, I hadn't asked myself, what am I going to do with this information? So I had the information, and then all it did was make me sad. So then I didn't need to know but if I had thought about why was I asking and what was I going to do with the information. If I had assessed why before I asked why, then I wouldn't have sought the answer to my why.
So I guess it's some credence to that statement of ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, I mean,
until I need to know, until I need to address it.
Let me focus on something else, or focus on not ignorance, like just focus on what do I need, what new knowledge do I need other than that, because
or what do I need to equip myself with before I get that information?
Yeah,
like what is it I need to? What do I need to have in my mind? What do I need to have in my heart? What do I need to clear out of my mind and clear out of my heart in order to receive that information? Because I'm telling you, so many times I've been in conversations where people already have this whole story built up about who I am, how I'm going to respond. The argument is already happening before I get there.
Yeah.
So it's important. They weren't able to clear out their mind and their heart to share with me their why. I have to be very careful not to take on all of that clutter that made the why come out the way it did.
And I think that knowing the reason behind things, it can be a beautiful thing. Like, that's why I know, for me, I did that. I made sure that I had the tools that I needed to know the whys to the questions that I really wanted to know for my life. Like the big existential whys, or why I was created, or why I have this thought in my head, or why I feel drawn to this, or why these people are in my life, So it is necessary to lay that groundwork to make sure that whenever you receive this information, then you are ready for it, because that's the reason I know that I can deal with why, and I know that everybody else can't deal with it. So I'm just trying to be more mindful about how I share the whys that I know, because other people aren't ready for the reasons behind. That's what I meant by when people ask me why, or when I'm feeling the need to explain, well, why I believe the way that I do, or why I operate the way that I do. I don't know if people will be ready to understand or receive my reason why, but I really know that, like, the truths that I have now, I had to do the work before, because before I wouldn't have even accepted the reasons. Like, I wouldn't have accepted the responses to those questions.
But I think it goes back to the conversation we had when we're talking about how when you teach children, and when I'm raising my daughter, the question is, like, we have to stay at the surface level, because we could easily go, beneath the surface and, like, want to give you the existential, the thesis behind it. Just stay right with the question. Well, why do you believe that? It's an interesting question. Why do you ask that? What makes you interested about what I believe?
Because then you can figure out where to start.
Yeah, and it's like, well, just because I thought maybe you believe something different. Oh, okay, then I can stay right there and say, okay, no, this is what I believe, and then just keep it moving. Yeah.
But if people didn't get offended, then you can easily have like I've had conversations when I have given my assumption for the reason behind, like, why someone is doing something. Like, what was I can't really, it's a private conversation, I can't say it now. But let's say, like, if somebody, Mr. and Mrs. X. Like, let's say person A, I'm talking to person A and person B, and then I ask what made you do this, and I, instead of asking why, because I know some people don't respond to the question well, I just said, well, was this the reason that you did it? Like, I gave my assumed reason, just to confirm if that reason was right or not. And that reason that I gave, like, the assumption was, I could see on their expression on their face that wasn't their reason. And they were like, but instead, I just was like, I didn't respond to it. I saw that, okay, that wasn't their reason. And because I tried to guess their reason, I was wrong. And now I see it written on their face. I don't know what way this is going to go. So let me just keep a calm face, and so they can see that I didn't mean anything by me assuming that maybe that's your reason. But it all started with me not wanting to say, well, why? Because I didn't know how they would respond. So,
but think about all that head work that's going on in that. Like, I teach a course and I talk about the ladder of inference and how we assign meaning to others' behavior. And it may not necessarily be that. And then the assumption really could make someone defensive, because assumptions can be character assaults. So you really have to be careful about that. But the other thing is, I'm really learning that people are going to believe whatever they want to believe anyway.
No matter what.
So even if I don't make an assumption, even if I explain myself very clearly and say that was not my intention, I apologize for coming across that way, they can still walk away saying, sure.
I know that's really
what
why.
I mean? And it's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of isms. Because you're young, because you're black, because you're a woman, I know that's what you meant. I know that's what, or because you're this or that, they can already make their assumptions. So I'm so over, one, I hate when people make assumptions about me. Two, I'm over trying to convince people of who I am. You know, even in interviews, even for jobs, stop trying to convince people, because that's clear that, and this may be above some people say, but that's clear that the energy is not right. So it's just,
yeah, if you have to,
we don't have to connect in that way. We don't have to have that type of relationship, and that's okay. If nobody knows me but me, I'm gonna be okay.
And I know I'm good company, so I'm all right to know.
Spoken like a true introvert. But for real, I am excellent company. Introverts worldwide rejoice.
But you definitely, like, that's a good segue to when and when not to explain why. Like, because for me, I don't like to explain why I think the way that I think, because it's too much energy sometimes, and I'm really big on, I don't want to waste my words, so I don't want to share my reason behind this or tell you why I really love sunsets and go all deep into why I love staring into the sky, and you're not even gonna go there with me. I don't want to waste my words explaining why I am the way that I am if I know that you're not, like you said, like we're not gonna connect in that way. So that's why when people are asking me certain questions, I need to figure out, what do I say instead of saying I don't like to explain. And I can't. People would think that that's rude.
You know, well, again, as long as I'm being tactful, I really cannot. I'm not saying to be rude or disrespectful to anybody, but people are going to think what they want to think. So ultimately, I think, again, we're such a society that moves so quickly that we think everything needs to happen quickly. So if someone asks you a question, you don't have to respond quickly. Give yourself enough time to let the thoughts form before you speak. And so I think we talked about an invitation, 2 different invitations. One, you personally had someone in your space invited you to festivities. We both were invited to some festivities. And I think it was such a beautiful response that you had to say, I won't be attending, or I'm unavailable. Because I don't have to explain why I'm unavailable. I don't have to explain why I won't be attending, because discretion is key. And because relationships change, like let's just say in the workspace, if I have a supervisor that asks me, why do you need sick leave? First of all, that's an HR issue. I really don't have to explain to you why I need sick leave or why I need leave. You know, if I do it in such a way that I tell you enough time, I provide whatever coverage is needed, complete my assignments in such a way, I don't need to share that with you. But I always say when I coach pageant girls or young ladies who want to be in pageants, I always say, take a second. And I say, that's an interesting question. You know, thank you for that question. And then go into the answer, because I've given you a couple of seconds to think. So if they say, hey, you want to go to lunch with us? And it's like, listen, I said it like Harley, but I'm a big introvert. I really like to spend time by myself. And so if someone says, hey, Jessica, you want to go to lunch with me? I start off with a compliment, because I'm a recovering people pleaser. So it's something I'm recovering from. I'm a recovering people pleaser. And so I will say, you know what, that was so kind of you to extend that invitation. Today, I'm not going to take you up on that offer, but maybe we can do that another time. Maybe we can plan some time. That's the other thing. I'm a planaholic as well. So in order for me to overcome that, I start over a comment because it makes me feel a little bit better. And it's not, because sometimes, like, it goes back to what you're saying, people will find it offensive. Like, well, Dad, you don't want to eat lunch with me? And it's like, no. It's got nothing, but then they have to explain.
But then
I'm an introvert.
I gotta explain? I don't feel like talking when I'm eating.
So the compliment actually gives me time to think as well. It's sincere and it's genuine, because people will pick up on that as well. But just start with there. Like, so if it is, hey, we're having a shower for so and so, do you want to participate? Man, that sounds like it's gonna be a great event. I won't be participating this go round, but please let her know I'm thinking of her. And if there's any other events that come up, let me know, because I want to see if I can participate in those.
See, and then it made me think too what you said in response to that invitation. Like, I thought about, why am I explaining? Like, am I explaining because, and initially, like, in my message, I was thinking, well, what excuse do I think they will think is acceptable? Like, will they accept my explanation? Will they be hurt by it? Or if I explain that I just don't want to, or like, so I was really thinking about, why am I explaining? Am I trying to make them feel better about me saying this? And if my reason for explaining is not that I think that it will help me grow or help our relationship grow or help the situation, then I don't need to be explaining.
But I think the initial reason why you explain is because you value honesty. because you're so honest and, transparent to the point where you're going to be honest and truthful in your response. If you were like a con artist or, like if at your core, you know what I mean? Like if at your core you didn't value telling people your business because it was for some nefarious reason, like, or you're trying to run, some game on them, it wouldn't be as hard, but it's hard because you value honesty. And you think people should present themselves as who they truly are because that's who you are. Whether or not I agree with the way you choose to live this life, I think that's the challenge. But again, goes back to boundaries. You wonder why people are burnt out, secondary traumatic stress, flipping tables over. A lot of it's relationship based. A lot of it is not the work in and of itself. It's because somebody said something slick in the elevator. Somebody has something to say in a meeting. And a lot of it, again, goes back to, I like how you said it. It's like, do I want to share that with that person? Would they get that? And I'm like, okay, so just keep it again. Interesting question. Because I think, and it's not meant to, but it does sometimes come across this way. It's like an ego stroke. Like, interesting question, because that makes me feel like I'm intelligent, that I would think of asking that type of question. But it is because it's interesting to me that you would ask that question.
Right. Like, because I'm wondering what you want it up for.
What is it that I can impart? What knowledge can I impart that will enhance your existence? Or is it that you just are inquisitive?
Are you being nosy? You just being nosy. And that's what I was saying.
Are you being inquisitive?
Right. See, okay, so inquisitive. But no, that's what I was saying, like in another video of mine, that that's what when people ask certain questions, it's because I don't know why you're asking, and I realized that it impacts because I don't know why people are asking me. It impacts whether or not I share certain information, and even still, like, I'm getting to know new people, and I noticed that, you meeting someone new, you share something about yourself, or they share something about themselves. And whatever they shared is maybe the same thing that has happened to me, or maybe I'm in the same situation, but I'm not ready to share it with that person because I don't know. Yes, they may be sharing it, because they're getting to know person and everything, but I don't really know what they're going to do with that information once they have it, because I don't know really why they're sharing. Are they sharing because they like me and they just trying to give me more information about themselves, or are they sharing because they want me to feel comfortable to share things about myself, just like so they can know about me, like just to be nervous, like nosy? And it makes me, like, I think about all these things. This is why it makes it difficult.
I get it because, like, conversing with other people about relationships. Like, you never know, like, are they, is it because, again, maybe this introvert, maybe this is just, we think a lot because we've got psychology and social work and counseling in our DNA, if you will. So you always turn it around on them and say, you know what, wow, you must think a lot of me to share that with me. I appreciate that. That was really kind of you to share. Because discernment, you have to give discernment time to kick in. I'm using the word discernment, but if I'm just speaking specifically from Jessica and her experience, it's a faith thing for me. Like, I've got to give the Holy Spirit time to say, don't answer that, or this is how you should answer that. So if I'm talking professionally, if I'm teaching a class or something, if I'm teaching a class or something, I would say give discernment enough time to kick in. So you can read the why on their body language. You can read the why on their face or how they're responding, but definitely give yourself some time to discernment. Because again, if I say, oh, you know what? My husband gets on my nerves all the time. So, like, what are you supposed to do with that? It's like, here you go. Are you supposed to say, mine too.
No, we're not about to go there. And I know that sometimes people share information so that we can go there.
That's so funny, uncomfortable. I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I don't automatically throw myself into the mix. Like, I just say, let's just talk about that in general. Like where somebody's telling me about the type of relationship they have, and I'm like, oh, I have that similar type of relationship, but I don't know if we should be talking about that. So let's just talk about relationships in general. So instead of me putting myself in there, we'll just make it a general conversation.
But I think that goes back to professional and personal, though, because if you find yourself doing that a whole lot personally, that means that maybe that's not a relationship worth pursuing, friendship or not. Professionally, you consistently want to be discerning, because you never know. Like, you can make friends in the workplace, but what happens when you get promoted and now you're their boss? You see, like, it makes it that much more challenging. So you want to be discerning the entire time you're in a professional space.
Okay, so I just noticed that my computer is.
Oh no, this is a good conversation. So for those who are on Instagram, we might have to just have a quick Q&A before when her laptop dies.
Yeah, let's do
because I
that.
see some Q.
Good. Let's get some of them Q's and I'll give some of my A's. So I can't see it from here. You can see it.
I can see from the bottom. So so we gotta wrap it up so that your laptop doesn't die.
Okay, well come on. So we're gonna take some questions and answers and stuff about why, asking why and all of that.
Good stuff. Sorry, Instagram. I hope I'm not making anybody busy.
Oh, I gotta get an Instagram. I don't have an Instagram. I just have my YouTube channel.
Okay, so first I'm gonna wave and say thank you for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us, you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey, I'm so sorry that I didn't say hello sooner. I so appreciate you all being in this space. So one of the questions, always tell me why when you call me to the office. Yes.
Yeah, you should.
I mean, but you know what? Honestly, if I was teaching, now pause to the poor connection. So if you're a manager and you're hearing this, I hope you hear this from the space of the staff and being a good manager. Give them a heads up because you don't want to waste your time either. Like before you call them, like I would send an email. It's 2020. Even before you call them into a Zoom meeting. So this effective use of your time. Like these are the things that we're going to cover. Are you still recording?
Yeah, I'm still recording.
These are the things that you want to that we're going to cover in the meeting. These are things you should be prepared for.
Okay, what's another one?
Oh yeah, and so she said you know why in your gut.
Why in your gut, and you know what? That is something that is very true. It can be biased sometimes the way that we interpret it, but your gut never lies to you. If you feel something in your gut, you know the reason is not like something is not right. But you do have to assess like, okay, am I misinterpreting my gut? But if your gut goes off, something is up, and you should know the reason why. Like even if it's nothing. It doesn't always have to be a dubious reason why, but your gut tells you about good and it tells you about bad.
But you got to be careful. Again, your gut is what I think is the same word as I'm saying for discernment. But if you're a creative, if you're a writer, if you're an imaginative, be very careful with trusting your gut because we can make an A through Z before we even walk into a space. So I will say be careful about that because again, it can lead to misjudging people, and that goes back to what I was talking about. People will have this whole story in their mind. Hey, that's you. And you created the whole story in your mind about what was taking place, and so you're already defensive. You're already on edge, and it was just like. And I just want to tell you, hey, I didn't want to embarrass you in front of everybody. You just did such a good job on such and such project, and you done got yourself all worked up for nothing. You know.
Okay. Anything.
Someone asks, how are you doing? Oh, we're doing well. If you guys like what you hear, please let us know because I really like this podcast. This lady right here has a podcast.
Yes, it's Random Yet Riveting Ramblings.
One more time.
Okay, let's do it again when it comes back. Random Yet Riveting Ramblings by Jannah B. Yeah, that's me.
And you want to check out her YouTube channel as well, which is
Jannah B, Jannah, the letter B. That's my name, and you'll see all of these on a playlist of Random Yet Riveting Ramblings, and I also have another where I review books and things called "What Your Library Looking Like."
Absolutely. So someone asks, "Are we siblings?" First, I want to answer that question to say we're both professional colleagues in that we both studied the same thing in school. We both love human behavior, and this is why I think we were able to have this conversation for more than 30 minutes.
Yeah, to have great conversation like that. The reason I wanted to have this meeting of the minds is because I love conversing with somebody that we can vibe and really they bring up different points that I hadn't considered, and this is exactly why I thought of Jessica when having this conversation because we can really ramble.
And so I'm gonna answer that question with how we talked about the what and the why. So what about that intrigues you?
Right. Why you want to know?
Don't answer that.
Why do you
what about that will make you more connected to the conversation we're having today to know whether or not we're related? So let's see if we have any other questions. Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right, Instagram, we didn't forget about y'all. Thank you so much for putting some questions in that question
Yes,
box.
I'm glad. It makes it, because usually it's just me talking to the camera, so it's nice to hear. And the reason I really wanted to discuss this is because I am on a journey to knowing more whys, and the whys about why I react the way that I do in certain situations, or in what ways can I share my reasons for who I am, for the way that I think, for the way that I interact with people, because we all have things that we can share and teach one another. And I think that that's the reason that we're alive, is to share what we know. And But because it's difficult for me to actually verbalize, and all the time I don't want to explain why, I'm pushing myself to think about why I think the way that I do, why I am the way that I do. I write my beliefs down. I write things down that are important to me. And this is me charging myself with sharing it, because maybe someone else has the same whys, or maybe someone is wondering about the same whys. And I've got a lot of answers to my whys by meditating and by reading and researching things that I was interested in, and things that my gut told me something's not right about this reason. Maybe I need to look more into this, or something in my gut told me that this does not gel well, or maybe I need to put myself out there in this way. So this is why I wanted to talk about why, because this question has led to so many changes in my life. So I'm glad that we could talk about it and give different perspectives, especially on how to ask why professionally, and when to know how to reword it. That's really the main reason why I've always run things by you, is because it does not come out the right way, and I will have the best intentions, but it is not received that way, and I'm trying to communicate better, and these conversations help. So I'm going to wrap this up now and say it's Jannah with another episode of Random Yet Riveting Ramblings, and I hope that you enjoyed it, and we'll do some lives eventually so that more people can get in on it. I'll have to get an Instagram, because this is like pretty cool, and that's all I got.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Instagram fan. This won't be the last one. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. She'll hope you come back and have another random yet riveting
rambling.
Yes, rambling yet riveting. Yes, and it's got me tongue tied. You can tell she has a master's degree. So I hope you all join us soon.
All right, bye.